It wanted
There
to.
it goes.
It wanted to.
We couldn't want it. We couldn't want it for
I
it.
can't want it for you. You gotta want it yourself. It wanted to. All right, let's start recording.
Yes.
And welcome into another episode of the Media Vote Podcast, the first of the December podcast episodes. We are the Media Vote Podcast, here to talk about the weekly news and thoughts on movies, TV, music, and video games.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily in that order.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Thank you for joining us. As you mentioned, it is December, everyone. Specifically, December 3rd, 2022. This is episode Xbox 360. Sorry, episode 360. I can't separate those two things.
It's okay. We're going to turn this podcast around 360 degrees.
Yep. And in record time, too. This will probably be a shorty, so thank you for joining us. It's an exciting time of year. Things are starting to wrap up, and we're going to talk about some early wrap-ups today, as well as news at the end of the show about our year-end wrap-up shows, which we'll get to momentarily. But in the meantime,
first, we got a regular-ass podcast episode
the most regular-ass podcast imaginable. Let's do it.
Yes, and we start with the music section. Yes. We start the music section with the Billboard. And we always start the Billboard with the Hot 100.
Right.
And Taylor Swift is once again your hot single. Well, one, she's hot. Two, your hot single.
Whoa, okay, all right.
With Anti-Hero as your number one song. At
Yes.
2, Rich Flex by Drake and 21 Savage.
Yep.
At 3, Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras.
Uh-huh.
Coming in at 4, Bad Habit by Steve Lacy.
Wait a minute, this is the same as last week, but
it's Christmas time.
Yep.
And here they come, creeping into the
Yep.
top 5, because All I Want for Christmas Is You
It's here
by Mariah Carey creeps into the top
Yep.
5.
Every year now since about 2016, this has been the case. Mariah is here. She has seen her shadow, and it's time for Christmas.
It's 6 more weeks of Mariah Carey.
Yeah, more or less. More like 4, but yes. So at number 5 there, I'm sure this will probably again hit number 1. I don't think even Taylor can fight the Mariah.
You mean Anti-Hero is not a Christmas song?
Not really. Not traditionally. So no.
There has some bells in it.
Are there bells?
I think those are bells.
I don't know. Ask Jack Antonoff when you have a chance. All right. That's your Hot 100.
Yep. As for your albums chart, your Billboard 200. Once again at number 1, Midnights by Taylor Swift.
Yeah, still there.
Coming in at 2, Her Loss. Well, his loss. But Her Loss by Drake and 21 Savage. At 3, Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny.
Still.
Coming in at 4, It's Only Me by Lil Baby. And we're not going to mention number 5.
Yeah, because yes, our least favorite man of 2022 is back in the top 5.
Yes, Dangerous, the double album. Morgan Wallen comes back in number 5. Where's the Christmas album? Where's Pentatonics? Get back in here.
Just give it a week.
If you didn't like any of those albums, then go enjoy Christmas music because there was no new releases.
Yeah, nothing. No mainstream releases this week. Also, it looks pretty dead until January.
Yep.
Just a heads up, we probably won't have a whole lot of new releases for the rest of December.
Foreseen.
Yeah.
You know if a surprise release will hit?
You keep saying this. I don't think it's going to happen.
It has happened in the past, so we have to set the precedent.
And even if it does, there's a lot. Okay, I hate talking about Swift rumors, but there is a strong contingency of Swifties that think that there's a chance that Taylor announces a Speak Now Taylor's version before her birthday on the 13th. Reason being that one of the songs on Speak Now, what is it called? I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's the benefit of a doubt song that I like to call it, where she was talking about the Kanye West. Oh God, we're not going to talk about him this week, by the way.
The Kanye.
But anyway, about the VMAs incident,
yes,
where she's basically giving him the benefit of the doubt during the whole song. It says there's a line that says 32 but still growing up now, referring to the fact that he, believe it or not, was 32 at the time of this event. Well, Taylor is 32 currently until December 13th, where she turns 33. So the Swifties have a theory that there's no way she releases that before she turns or after she turns 33.
Well, I don't know about me, but she is 33.
32, yes. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how much I put in there, but it would make sense. Again, the timeline for the Eras tour lines up that she would be releasing one of these every month until March. If that's true, maybe we do speak now this month, but we'll see. Jury's still out on that one. Also, that won't affect our top 10 or top 5s, I don't think. But anyway.
All right. So with that, let's get into the music news.
Yes.
And because it's December, everyone's going to put out their list.
List time. It's list time.
Yes. And the first ones to always do it is the music section.
Yes, always.
Just because by the time we get to December, you got all the streaming numbers. Nothing's going to topple them.
Yes.
And they've had literally a whole year to think about it.
Because this is not favorites. This is just raw data. We're talking about the top streamed songs on 3 different streaming sites, networks, services.
So first, we're going to start with YouTube. Yep. And believe it or not, Disney's Encanto, the film that came out in Christmas last year, has conjured some more musical magic, notching 2 spots on YouTube's top 10 song list in the US specifically, for 2022 specifically. One of them, I bet you can guess.
Yes.
We don't talk about Bruno.
Right.
It was everywhere at the beginning of the year. It's all anyone could talk about, or rather not talk about, as performed by the Encanto cast. And that took the #1 spot overall on YouTube's end of the year ranking.
I mean, makes sense, right? Families with young kids. This is something that was probably available on kids' YouTube as well. You get extra numbers with parents playing Encanto songs over and over and over again.
Plus, unlike putting on Spotify or Apple Music, you get the visual aid with it too for the kids.
Also true.
And it's just hit that little piece of YouTube over and over and over until they stop talking about Bruno.
Also, let's be real, it's a jam.
It is also a jam. Lin-Manuel Miranda can write a hit. Speaking of writing a hit, he also wrote and co-wrote the #3 song on YouTube's top 10 list.
Also from Encanto.
The second song being Surface Pressure, as performed by Jessica Darrow.
Right.
So congratulations to Encanto and Lin-Manuel. 2 out of the top 10 this year.
Not bad.
Meanwhile, tracks from Latin artist Bad Bunny, Chencho Corraleno, Becky G, and Carol G,
no relation,
landed 4 other spots in YouTube's top 10 US songs list for 2022.
What about Kenny G?
No, his time comes at Christmas time. Coming in at #2 on the YouTube US songs chart for the year.
In case where you were wondering what was in the middle of the Encanto songs.
Yes, was Kodak Black's hit Super Gremlin.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe on the power of the video, because I feel like this doesn't show up in any other of these lists. So I don't know. Interesting.
Well then, let's move over to Spotify.
Yeah, if you're on social media, you'll know that this week hit the Spotify Unwrapped, the annual celebration of how much you listen to the same shit all year. And so your friends
any changes in your preference?
Well, I don't have Spotify anymore, so I don't know. I don't have a Wrapped or Unwrapped. I can't tell you.
Well, we unwrapped ours.
Yes.
And for the 3rd year in a row, Midland was the #1 album and #1 artist that we played, because we always play Midland whenever we go golfing.
That makes sense.
And thus, Midland is always on there.
Your #1.
Yep.
Man, I remember
3 years in a row.
I remember when it used to be just Vitamin String Quartet every year for you.
Yes. Because that was my study music.
Yeah.
Anyways, leading the pack of Spotify once again was Bad Bunny, who for the 3rd year in a row was the most streamed artist globally on Spotify.
Yeah.
The Puerto Rican rapper and singer's tracks generated more than 18.5 billion streams so far this year on Spotify, and his album Un Verano Sin Ti was the #1 most streamed album worldwide this year.
Makes sense. It was consistently in the top 5 basically since it came out. So this is not surprising.
Meanwhile, Taylor Swift was Spotify's second most streamed artist overall, but the first most streamed female artist of the year.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which was a repeat from 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Her album, Midnights, notched the number 4 spot on the US most streamed albums, an impressive feat given that it dropped less than 6 weeks ago.
Yes.
In addition, Swift is Spotify's most viral artist of the year, meaning her music is the most frequently shared from Spotify to social platforms.
Makes sense.
Drake, The Weeknd, and BTS all rounded out the top 5 most streamed artists globally for 2022. Spotify's most streamed song of 2022 was As It Was by Harry Styles.
Yeah.
With more than 1.6 billion streams globally this year. In the second and third spots, respectively, are Heat Waves by Glass Animals, and for the second year running, Stay with Justin Bieber by Kid Laroi.
Yeah.
The fourth and fifth spots both come from Bad Bunny with Mi Porto Bonito and Titi Mi Pregunto.
So yeah, again, same kind of expected people that you'd see, but slightly different than the YouTube numbers. It's interesting how when we go over these three, there's some crossover, but not a whole lot, honestly. Makes you think of the different demographics that are watching each or using these services.
Meanwhile, I said meanwhile. Lastly, bad writing, bad grammatical writing. Don't do meanwhile and meanwhile in the same paragraph. Lastly, over at Apple Music, the Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber took the number 1 spot on Apple Music's top songs of 2022 with their collaboration Stay, which was released in December of 2021.
Last year.
Yep. In fact, Stay spent 51 days atop Apple Music's daily top 100. Global.
Yeah. Top 100.
Top 100 global. And remained on the chart through the rest of 2022. The top 10 was rounded out by Harry Styles, As It Was, Future's Wait For You, but really it's Drake and Tim's, Kodak Black's Super Gremlin, Adele's Easy On Me, Glass Animals' Heat Waves, Elton John and Dua Lipa's Cold Cold Heart, Jack Harlow's First Class, Bad Bunny and Chenko Corleone's Me Porto Bonito, and lastly, Gale with ABCDEFU.
Yes. Yeah, again, interesting contrast between the three here. You get a lot of kids and families, like I mentioned, with YouTube.
Yep.
Spotify is the biggest one, so you're going to get the global numbers are interesting there because, yeah, of course, it's going to be Bad Bunny every year.
Yep.
And then with Apple Music, you get more of a variety. And I think that may be because it kind of skews a little older, and I bet it skews probably mostly US.
I wonder how much of that skews because iPhones users too.
Yeah, I would imagine. And so, yeah, it's interesting where you kind of see these silos, and that will determine what's your biggest hits. But the consistency here is, of course,
Harry Styles,
Justin Bieber and Kid Laroi Stay being a perennial hit, apparently, continuing to be a hit. And, of course, Taylor Swift.
Yep.
So, yeah, interesting. And it gives you kind of an idea of what you're going to see at the end of the year lists. I think you're going to see probably a lot of Taylor, a lot of Harry, and a lot of Bad Bunny again.
Yep. Which means no Beyonce, no Lizzo.
Yeah, interesting to not see Beyonce here. I feel like that's going to be a critical darling, though. So when you start getting to the top, like the press's top lists, we already have Paste and Rolling Stones hit this week, and Beyonce ranked high on both of those. So yeah, look to see Renaissance a lot on the critical top 10s. But streaming-wise, didn't make much of an impact this year. Interesting, nonetheless.
Yeah. All right. Did you listen to anything?
No, like I said, no new releases for the rest of the month. So really, right now, it's mostly catch-up trying to determine top 10s. Or top 15s in my case, because there were way too many albums. And I started with 22. I had to will that to 15, and then I had to figure out 5 out of those. It was a challenge, but yeah, a lot of good music to catch up on. Though this was a really strong year, so yeah, take the time with no new releases to come out by listening and catching up to some old favorites.
Instead of listening to Christmas music.
Yes, unless you're that kind of person, then okay, go for it.
Yes, unless you're that kind of person. Anyways, let's move on to video games then.
Yeah.
And we'll start with new releases.
Yes.
Some holiday releases.
Yeah, not a whole lot. Again, just like music, this is going to slow down through the month of December.
Yep, including Hello Neighbor 2 for everything but the Switch. But don't be alarmed. You Switch owners get Dragon Quest Treasures.
Yeah.
While it only belongs on the Switch. And lastly, Samurai Maiden for the PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC.
Yeah, just also a heads up about Hello Neighbor 2. That is a Game Pass game as well. That'll be on PC and console Game Pass. Also, one note about Game Pass, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this one because this is something you spent money on this year. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga will be hitting Game Pass.
I don't care.
You've already gotten your time out of it.
I got a whole lot of time out of it.
I'm just saying now you'll have it again.
Yes,
if you wanted to play it again.
If you haven't played Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga,
I might check it out
on the Game Pass
now.
Yeah. It is literally a whole lot of time sucking.
I mean, I have too many games to catch up on, but maybe like in the January doldrums, maybe I'll give it a shot.
It took me like 6 months to beat that game.
Dang.
And I still haven't got the 100% on it.
Are you going to do it?
By the end of the year?
No, I mean, ever. Are you going to do it?
Yeah, I just have to go through like each individual story point and finish those up.
Once you finish God of War, you'll probably do that.
Yeah, maybe.
Someday.
All right. So let's get into some video game news.
Yeah, just a couple updates from last week's stories, basically.
Yeah, so last week we talked about Microsoft and the FTC.
Yes.
So Microsoft is prepared to fight in court to ensure its $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard goes through should the U.S. Federal Trade Commission attempt to block the deal.
As they said that they would.
Yep. That's according to a new report by Bloomberg, which cites a person familiar with the matter. The claim follows a recent publication of a political report which alleged that the FTC was, quote, likely to file an antitrust lawsuit to block Microsoft's proposed takeover of the Call of Duty parent. An antitrust lawsuit would mean that Microsoft would have to fight to push forward its acquisition in the U.S. courts, according to Bloomberg. So, according to Bloomberg's source, in the event that the FTC does file that lawsuit, Microsoft is gearing up to contest that decision. According to antitrust analyst Jennifer Rye, a court fight would be hard for the FTC to win, and Microsoft could win out, though a legal battle could push the deal beyond Microsoft's expected completion date, which they currently have set at June 30th, 2023. Activision Blizzard's CCO has also said the company, quote, won't hesitate to fight to make sure Microsoft is successful in acquiring it.
So yeah, this is more or less what we expected Microsoft to do and say after we talked about last week when the FTC when that story came out about the FTC's intent on suing them. Yeah, not surprising that, and Microsoft does probably have a case, again, like we talked about last week. The kicker here will be, will the FTC basically be like, okay, this is fine, but here's a list of concessions to make? And will Microsoft come to the table with concessions already to offer? The theory is that their concession is going to be, and this was also a story that came out this week, to codify in an official form that 10-year deal for Call of Duty for Sony platform. Because they've kind of unofficially been talking to Sony about that, like we reported.
But until it's in writing.
But what Microsoft's likely going to come to the FTC with is, no, we're going to make it official. We're going to make a 10-year contract with PlayStation to say in writing, we will continue delivering Call of Duty games to PlayStation platforms until the end of this contract.
Now, will that be an annual 10-year deal? Because Call of Duty is an annual franchise at this point.
The tricky part about something like this is, even though on paper it looks like they're trying to appease Sony, they're really trying to appease the FTC. But Sony's been so vocal that the FTC may have been listening to them. So it's 100% based on what the FTC feels like, how valid Sony's concern is about Call of Duty. And honestly, when it comes to that question, I think the court is going to be like, it's not that big of a deal. I think they're going to look at Sony
when you're
and
talking
be like,
to people who probably never played a Call of Duty game.
again, like we talked about last week, it really depends
Yes.
on the jury here. It really depends on how this court, like how the trial goes, because it's depending on who you are. That's either a very convincing case. It's like, oh, what happens to Call of Duty? It's a big deal. Or it's not at all when you're like, oh, well, PlayStation can make a Call of Duty. Like it's the equivalent, right? So it's the big question about how much they're taking a grain of salt with that Sony stuff. Or if there's something else that maybe we haven't considered that the FTC has a bone to pick about. Maybe King, the mobile developer that Activision Blizzard also owns, maybe comes into consideration here.
Everyone's focused on Activision Blizzard that they don't.
Microsoft has Microsoft wants King just as much as the Activision Blizzard properties because they're really not a player in the mobile game space. This would get them into a mobile game space, but would the FTC and the court have a problem with that? Being like, well, Microsoft's and everything else, why would they also need to be that big in mobile?
Are you trying to say that they're trying to Trojan horse King into the deal?
I think, well, it's not even a Trojan horse. It's the most obvious Trojan horse in the world. It's a Trojan horse that's adorned with mobile phones.
Right, but that's also the one that's not getting the headline news.
Right, no, it's not.
Because it's Call of Duty.
Even stories like this leave King out of the name of Activision Blizzard, even though they are technically Activision Blizzard King. Right. Nobody calls them that. But yeah, it's just as much of an important part in this purchase. So yeah, there's a lot of questions still. But yeah, it'll be an interesting situation to see this go to court. But Microsoft is saying that they are prepared to fight, and I believe that.
What if when they make the deal that they just don't put out Call of Duty game for 10 years?
There's no way. No way.
Because they just say, hey, like, we'll put out a Call of Duty game on all consoles over the 10-year period. If we ever decide to put out a Call of Duty game.
There's no way, especially with the numbers that Modern Warfare 2 did this year. It is a huge deal. There's no way they stop making Call of Duties anytime soon. They're skipping next year, though.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean we won't see Call of Duty content. Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 will probably have a big update next year in place of a traditional Call of Duty game. But yeah, I don't think that means that they're going to slow down going forward. I think if anything, this year has bolstered their confidence in Call of Duty as a brand, and we'll see a whole lot more, especially after this deal goes through. Microsoft's going to want Call of Duty to be a flagship part of their company.
Yeah. Speaking of updates,
yes,
not happening next year, but happening 2 days ago. Yeah. Today, however you want
to.
Current update. Yes. So Nintendo for Pokemon has apologized.
Finally.
I mean, after backlash from fans for performance issue in its hit-selling game Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Yes.
And pledged to make improvements to the games.
Yes.
So, as a gesture, on Wednesday, the company detailed the next update coming to the games and said it was taking players' feedback seriously. Version 1.1.0 update was released on a Thursday and brought with it the first season of Ranked Battles, one of the game's competitive modes. It will also fix an issue where certain music tracks weren't playing correctly during specific battles. In a message from the platform holder, it apologized for performance issues that players have encountered, saying that it will, quote, take the feedback from players seriously and is working on improvements to the game.
Yeah.
Close quote.
So the story here is not as much the patch notes.
The story here really is that the fans bullied Nintendo to do something.
Nintendo finally had to make a statement, and they buried it in this patch note article, basically. It's interesting to see them. A lot of people were questioning whether Nintendo would even acknowledge the fact that the games were seen to be running poorly. Game Freak themselves have yet to make a statement, which is interesting, but Nintendo having to take the bullet here makes sense. They are the publisher. And yeah, I believe it when they say that. Nintendo, usually if they're dragged out to make a statement like that, they will absolutely make something happen. And so I do see it. Also, some fans are saying that this bug fix patch, even though it doesn't specifically mention anything, does improve the performance a bit. And I can back this up firsthand. It seems like some of the theory is by the fans here is that it seems like some of the slowdown that was happening graphically, where the frame rate would drop, especially in cities and like high detail areas, was caused by a memory leak that was apparently a bug that was fixed in this release. It does differ from what I hear from docked mode and handheld mode. Apparently, it runs slightly smoother in handheld mode. Makes sense. Also, I did hear anecdotally on a podcast that some people were having more success by saving it to the Switch's internal memory as opposed to on an SD card. That may fix some of it, and that's just maybe a bug that they didn't realize that was there. So yeah, as they start releasing bug fixes, maybe it'll gradually get better and better. I have confidence that Nintendo is working on this behind the scenes with Game Freak, and I'm happy that they admitted that they were wrong. I'm happy that they actually came out and said this, because that's a big move for a company as confident and usually as secretive as Nintendo. And yeah, honestly, it's good news, because I feel like a less buggy, better looking, and better running version of these games, I think the critical reaction would flip. I think that these games are good games that are buried because of their technical performance. And I think that more people would realize how good this generation is if it wasn't for that.
Well, I think people are easily comparing it to Breath of the Wild, which came out a couple of years ago,
and ran
as well as
years ago, 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, several years ago, as well as all the performance of Tears of the Kingdom of what they've been showing so far.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
Switch can do this. Can't you do this?
Yes, but people,
It's
when
different
people say that,
companies.
you need to realize that it's not Nintendo's internal team that's
they're
developing this
different
Pokemon
companies.
game. It's Game Freak, and somebody dug up an article that was actually fascinating, an interview with Game Freak from like several years ago. I don't remember exactly when. That mentions basically the question is how are the dividing lines between Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo, and how is that? How are tasks delegated in Nintendo for Pokemon games? Basically, Game Freak is the sole developer alongside Creatures, which is a co-developer company, that they make the games. Pokemon Company is the marketing, is the merchandising, branding. Is the branding, and then Nintendo is the publisher. So the deal that they made when the Pokemon Company was developed to be kind of like overseeing all of the Pokemon stuff is that they are treated like siloed separate things, which means that Game Freak never asks Nintendo for help and vice versa. So Game Freak is basically on their own. Nintendo is never going to come in and be like, well, you better do this with your game, because they're just the publisher. And in a publisher, all really publishers do is that they say, okay, does it work? Cool, stamp. Put it out and we'll divide the money evenly, or not evenly, but with a planned
lawyer
contract.
Yep.
And so so people are like, oh, why didn't Nintendo do anything? That's why, is because that they're literally set this up so that way Game Freak would be able to develop Pokemon games the way they want to without company oversight from Nintendo, for better or for worse. And we're finally seeing the for worse part. But yeah, ultimately though, if Nintendo wants to, and this statement, oh my God, Siri, if Nintendo wants to, and the statement says that they do have intent, they can get people in there and be like, all right, we need to do something about this, and that sounds like what's going to happen.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, some butts are going to be kicked over there, which, hey, if it makes a better experience for these games, which I think are legitimately good, somewhere under there, like under the surface, I think that's good for everybody. So,
anything can always be improved upon.
Yeah.
Although it's how much improved upon until you're just like, what kind of mess did we make?
I mean, yes. I don't know if it could get any worse though. So at least that. There's that.
Oh, you're going the other way there.
Yeah.
All right. So, did you play any games then?
I mentioned this pre-pod to you, but yes, I'm trying to wrap up a few games before we do top 10s, although I guess it's not going to happen. Top 5s, I should say. I keep saying top 10s. But yeah, so the last couple of days, I've been trying to iron out the last few missions in Neon White, the game from earlier in the year.
Game from the summer.
Yes. And I'm almost there. I feel like the momentum of the story is starting to wrap up. I've learned a lot of backstory now. I know some details that I didn't know about what happened beforehand. And I know some things about now the reality of heaven and the situation they're in.
Yes.
And also, I feel like I've gotten to
more story. You got more story out of
I got
it.
more story out of it, and I finally gotten to the point where it feels like it's the missions I'm on right now feel like they're trying to take everything I've learned and challenge me with all of it.
Yes.
Which is fun. And I feel like they buried it. I feel a lot of people already said this about this game back when it first came out, but they buried the best thing in the back end of the game. There's a weapon that's so much fun to use that they buried in the second to last thing. And I'm like, oh my God, where was this? This is so much fun.
You got to that part?
I got to the thing that's really fun. Yes.
Yeah, okay, yes. Then you are towards the end of the
We'll talk about when we do our top fives.
Yes.
Go more into depth, but there was a doldrum around the missions with the where you first see the trip mines.
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to feel like, all right, let's get to it. This is kind of dumb. And right after that, they're like, okay, here, play around with this thing, and I'm like, okay, this is fun.
Yes.
This revitalized my love for that game. So yeah, we'll talk more about it in the top fives. But yes, I should be wrapping up Neon White very soon.
Okay. I got to the credits of God of War.
Hey!
Thank you for such a good story. I got to the credits, got to a couple of the epilogue stuff as well.
Okay.
I've cleared out everything except for the trials.
Okay.
And the final like hard boss. Not the Valkyries this time around, but rather the King of the Dead.
Okay.
King of the Travelers. So I just have that final boss to beat, which is, because he's the final boss, like the hard end boss is just banging your head until you get it right.
Tricky.
Yep. So as soon as I do that, that will be 100% all trophies. Well, and then like the trials, but who cares about the trials?
Who cares?
So other than that, yeah, I hit credits roll, got some sort of epilogue.
Cool.
Where's my new game plus?
Patience. They'll do it eventually.
I know they'll do it just like they did with God of War 2018.
Yep.
They'll patch in and say, and now you have access to new game plus. I'm like, yes, get me back into this because yes, it is that good of a game.
And
yes,
I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the top five. Well, looking forward to that.
Other than that, I did end up playing Vampire Survivors.
Hell yes! Let's do it! Let's go! Okay, how'd you feel?
It's a roguelike.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
I was having some trouble with it, and then all of a sudden, something clicked on one of the levels.
Literally what happened to me.
And I got all the way up to level 93.
Hell yes.
Have you gotten like past that 100 something?
I mean, I don't usually look at it. I just go by time. Like, because that's what you're ultimately doing, is you're trying to last as long as you can.
Oh, I got to the point where I could just stand there and people would just like surround me and be like, you can't touch this. No, yeah. I can't touch this.
We'll talk about it more in the top fives, but the reason why I like that game so much is that feeling that you're describing right now. When you get to that tipping point, where you're like, I don't even have to move.
Oh, this is how you're supposed to play the game.
Yeah. Oh, I got to that point. Because yeah, you're right. The first couple of rounds, I was like dying really early, and I was like, I don't get this. This is not working for me. And what you described as that moment where it clicks, 100% happened to me too. Where I got to the point where I was
I guess my one question is that how do you beat the game without garlic?
I love garlic. Garlic's my favorite too.
You can't beat the game without garlic.
It's so good. I like anything that is area of effect around you.
Yes.
Garlic, the Bibles.
Yes.
Like those are my go-tos. And when you also one of the magic times in that game, I feel like we're burning some of the top five, but yeah, the one of the magic moments in that game is when you get to the evolved weapons. Did you have anything evolve for you yet?
Yes.
It feels so good. I was like, oh, it does this now.
I was kind of questioning when I first saw it, like, oh wait, what does this mean? Like a second weapon thing. I was like, oh, that's what it is.
That game's cool. And I feel like the more you play it, the more you unlock secrets and you're like realize, oh, this is even wilder than I imagined this could do. Like, yeah, that's a magic game. We'll talk about it more, but yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad you're on board.
Yes. In case you haven't noticed, when we do our top 5 end of the year lists, spoiler free.
Oh yeah. We're being cagey here, but yes. We promise for the top 5s, we will. Yeah, it's a spoiler zone.
It's a no holds barred,
Yes,
all spoilers,
all discussion. So yes, we'll get
Yes.
there.
All right. Anything else in video games to talk about?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, just gonna do a wrap up, and yeah, because there's not gonna be any new games to talk about probably until the new year. So
Yep. And I think with that, I have probably one game from every console on my list.
Wow.
Or at least I've played the game. They're available on multiple ways to play it, but
Yeah.
from what I've played,
Oh.
I've played on multiple consoles.
Actually, I take that back. I did technically play 3 new things, but I'll be very brief about them. The beta for the new Pokemon TCG Live
Oh,
is
yes.
out. I played it. Played a couple of rounds. The meta for the Pokemon card game has gotten so complicated. I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Okay.
I think that like playing the modern version with modern cards now feels like playing Magic the Gathering, and I don't like it.
Does it feel like Yu-Gi-Oh yet?
Yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. It feels like they made it over the years so much more complicated than it was when I was playing it as a kid, that it's just not newbie friendly anymore.
Well, you need new cards to nerf other cards.
It's
and if you don't have them,
it's so complicated now. I was like, this is not fun for me. I think the people who have kept up with the meta and are already aware of the changes that they've made will probably like it. But for people who played the original and then dropped off for a while, I think it's going to be very intimidating. So just know that going into it. However, presentation and the way that the game runs, way better than the last time that they did this. That game was like 10 years old. I'm glad that they finally did a new one.
Okay.
Also, I mentioned this to you briefly as well, but I finally played Kirby's Dream Buffet.
Yes.
The other Kirby release from 2022. Nice, fun multiplayer game, chaotic, but yeah, it's a neat thing for if you have a few people and you want to play a Kirby game where you eat a lot of food. It's a mini game collection, essentially, that's kind of similar to Fall Guys in a weird way, in the way that it's like, here's 4 things to do, and at the end we'll rank you kind of thing. It's fun. And it might be a fun little distraction, and it's only like $20, so it's cheap. And then lastly, in Apple Arcade releases, there's a thing called SpongeBob SquarePants Solitaire, or Sponge Solitaire Pants, or something like that. I forget what it is. It's a solitaire game with SpongeBob. It's unique in the way that it's a square grid with a deck in the middle. Otherwise, it's very similar to Spider Solitaire, where you're stacking above or below, basically. And basically, the hook is that you can unlock SpongeBob-themed decks as you play. And because it's an Apple Arcade game, you're not inundated by microtransactions or ads. So you basically, the more you play, like you just keep unlocking new stuff. And there's cute references to the show. The deck I'm using, for example, right now is themed on the Krusty Krab training video. So it's POOP, people order our patties on every card. It's very cute. Yeah, so if you like SpongeBob and you have Apple Arcade, it's a nice distraction. It's not great. And honestly, I think it's actually more challenging than I think that I anticipated. And so some of the quest stuff, some of the stuff that they want you to do with some of the rounds is like, it's a little much. I don't know how much kids are going to like it, for example, even though it seems like a very kid-friendly thing. So yeah, that's there if you have Apple Arcade. If you like SpongeBob, it's neat, but it's not gonna really register for me. So yeah, I guess I did have 3 games, but that's it. That's all I have to really say about them.
All right. But hey, they added to our list total at the end of the year.
They did.
Yes. So with that, move out of video games and into television.
We start the second half of the show with television, and we start television with the Sports Corner. The big sports event right now, of course, is the World Cup. It has moved on to the knockout rounds. So
round of 16.
In fact, just as of this recording, about 10 minutes before we started, the U.S. men's team was eliminated. So no more of them.
Yes, they were eliminated by the Netherlands.
Yes.
Team in orange. Congratulations, U.S. You scored 2 goals?
Grand total.
Oh, no, they scored 1 today. So 3 total goals in the World Cup.
Something. They'll still make more money for losing than the women made for winning 3 times. Can you believe that? That sucks, right?
Yep.
Glad they passed that thing that's going to share the money going forward, huh? Yeah, anyway. So keep tabs on whatever your country is to pick to win as they continue through the knockout rounds.
Or don't watch because it's
Or
Qatar.
watch, yeah, or just maybe don't pay attention like I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
That works too.
Or you can just like follow us, and
Yeah.
we'll just tell you who wins at the end.
We'll tell you if there's anything interesting that happens. How about that?
Yes, because there's stuff
Deal.
that happened outside of the World Cup.
Yes, Cristiano Ronaldo is leaving Manchester United and joining Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr for 2.5 years for $770 million.
He's getting paid $306 million a year
Yeah.
to play for Saudi Arabia.
For Saudi Arabia.
Al Nassr.
Speaking of human rights violations, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Let's not talk about Saudi Arabia. There's baggage, as you can imagine, and this is a weird move.
Yes.
It's got to be the money, right?
Well, Live Golf was all about the money, right?
Exactly. We already talked about that. Seems a recurring story in sports this weird how that happens.
Money, huh?
Money will make people do some questionable things, including
Yes.
Lionel Messi, soccer star extraordinaire, has made a deal to play with Inter Miami, which is co-owned by David Beckham. That's, of course, a United States-based organization, in case you missed that.
Despite the name being Inter Miami,
yes,
it's not international. It is Miami's team for the MLS.
So
much like David Beckham when he came to the Galaxy, now Lionel Messi is coming to Miami.
Not surprising. This seems to be the it's similar in a way to baseball, how your biggest stars in like the Japanese leagues will sometimes make their way to the major leagues here. Except in soccer, it's always after basically they've had a very full and fruitful career.
Mm-hmm.
They'll eventually just be like, I don't know, I'll play in the U.S. for a little bit, just like Beckham did.
I'll play in the U.S. Yeah. I'll go out to commercials.
Right.
I'll make all the brand deals and like get the beach in Miami.
And this will bring people to Miami soccer games.
Yes.
This will definitely bring the crowds. It's not surprising why this would work for both ends of this deal.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. If Messi wants to make money, sure. At least he's not playing for Saudi Arabia. Anyways.
Let's move on. Anything else you want to dig in that?
No, that's it. I'm done talking about that. Meanwhile, in college sports, the NCAA has approved playoff expansion from 4 teams to 12 teams starting in 2024. Those extra games are expected to generate roughly $450 million in revenue for ESPN and the CFP and its members. So more playoff games for the college games. How do you feel about this?
So good and bad. I mean, maybe it means the bowl games will actually mean something now.
That seems to be
what
they're trying to do.
Yes, but again, those 12 teams means that it's 6 games. 8 teams. So additional 4 bowl games will matter because 4 will get the bye, and then those 4 teams will play the winner of the 8.
Yeah. Okay.
A winner of the 8, and that's how you get those 4.
Right.
And then those 8 will play, and then it'll be the 4, and then it'll be the 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Brackets and math.
So do you think that this will make it a little bit more fair? Do you think more teams will be involved?
I think it's a way for them to get out of becoming 2 super conferences.
Yes.
SEC and Big 10. Yeah. Or Big 12 or whatever it is.
I think
now that you have it out to 12 teams, whenever conference gets an auto bid.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever the next 4 teams are.
Okay.
Choose whoever has the best record to get those first 4 buys.
Yeah.
But this does mean that winning your conference actually matters this time.
It sounds like it.
And you actually have a shot at a finals. And it took us a long time, but we finally got here outside of we had a computer do it for the longest time.
Yeah.
Computer rankings, and then coaches' ballots, and then AP polls.
It's honestly too complicated.
It is.
It's honestly a mess. And if they can simplify this, I hope they do it soon.
Yes. But yes, this does mean that whoever becomes that 13th team is SOL.
Well, hopefully it's not your favorite team then.
It just means that you don't want to be unlucky 13.
No one does. Let's move on. Speaking of that, this year's bowl games will be announced on Sunday. So get ready.
This week is championship weekend. All championship games will be played yesterday, today, and I
Yes.
believe tomorrow as well. I don't think so. I think it's just today, yesterday, and today. USC, who was previously ranked fourth, lost last night against Utah in the Pac-12 championship. So because they lost, it's a good chance they're going to fall out of that number 4 ranking and miss their chance on making the playoffs.
Yikes.
Which gives the Ohio State
a
chance back into the top 4.
All right. Well, we will see on a Sunday.
Yep, and we will know who will be selected as the top 4 on next week's podcast.
We will. And also on Sunday, less exciting news. Everybody's least favorite football player will be back in the league playing a game. Deshaun Watson. Yes, that Deshaun Watson.
Following his 11-game suspension.
Back playing now for the Browns?
Yes.
Right. Yes, that's how that went down. Against his former home, the Texans, this
at
Texas
Stadium.
Oh boy, I don't want to be there.
Stadium.
I don't want to be there when that happens.
No. Supposedly, all of the accusers for Deshaun Watson have been invited to the game.
Oh, there's nothing good about this. This sucks.
Yeah.
All the way around. The Browns knew what they were doing when they signed him.
Well, the Browns knew what they're doing when they made his deal 100% guaranteed money.
It's embarrassing. It's a blemish on the league. It's a blemish on the team. It makes it impossible to want anything good for the Browns, a perennially underdog team who used to be fun to root for. It used to be fun to be like, hey, what if the Browns were good? Now you have this situation
and then
where
you had Baker Mayfield.
Right, exactly. We don't have that ended up. But yeah. So now it's a lose-lose situation, right? Because if they're good, if Deshaun Watson actually makes them better, it sucks because Deshaun Watson is winning. But if they lose, then the Browns are still bad. It's like,
well, you can win a game without passing yards.
Theoretically, in the modern NFL, maybe? I don't know.
And I'm rooting for that because Nick Chubb's on my fantasy football team. Come on, Nick Chubb.
You love Nick Chubb.
Oh, the big Chubb, the full Chubb.
Well, at least you have a Chubb to look forward to on Sunday. I wish we all did, honestly. Let's move on, though. That's it for sports, unless you have anything else to add.
Just some baseball signings. That's it.
Yeah, I saw DeGrom.
Yep, DeGrom signed for 5 years.
Ranger now?
5 years for the Rangers.
What? Okay, I mean, I personal reasons why I do not want the Rangers to be better, because they're in our division. But hey, speaking of perennially underdog teams, maybe it'll be exciting if they have some power on their side. But we'll see.
It's all for a pitcher who plays one position rather than Ohtani who plays 2 positions.
Yeah, you know what? Everything's less exciting when you compare it to Ohtani. Let's be real. So yeah.
Hey, we can do that for about another 3 years. I'm going to keep doing it.
Please, I hope 1 at least, but maybe 3. We'll see.
All right.
See what happens. All right. Anyway, that's it for sports. Let's move into television news. Why don't we?
Slow news week.
Yeah, slow news week, but we start with Prime Video, which is now, the number 1 subscription streaming outlet in the U.S., finally supplanting Netflix. That's according to an annual ranking compiled by research firm Parks Associates. So for many years in the 2010s, its ratings looked consistent, with the former big 3 of Netflix, Prime Video, and Hulu sharing the top 3 spots, always with Netflix at the top. It was ubiquitous. Mm-hmm. It's the thing when you think of streaming, it's the first one, the original, the OG, Netflix. Today, though, the rankings are much more fragmented, given how many new players have entered the scene, your Disney Pluses, etc. Amazon said last year it has more than 200 million Prime members, and of course, Prime Video is among the Prime program's benefits. Several weeks ago, the company also recently said The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, has been viewed by more than 100 million Prime subscribers worldwide. Meanwhile, Netflix has hit a plateau in the US. We've talked about this a lot this year, even shedding a small amount of subscribers over recent quarters. The company reported 73.4 million subscribers in the US and Canada as of September 30th, up 100,000 from the previous quarter, but below levels in 2021 and earlier this year. On a global basis, of course, Netflix continues to lead the field with a bit more than 223 million subscribers. This is because Some of these streaming services are different or unavailable in some parts of the world. Netflix is the exception. Disney has been hot on its heels, though, with Disney Plus now at 164.2 million, and the company overall reaching 235.7 million across Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and I'm going to add this because it's not in the story, Star, which is a global branding that they also use. So
depending on how you want to skew those numbers.
Exactly, and that's what there is to unpack here. We kind of briefly talked about this pre-pod, which is Amazon is skewing these numbers a little bit because they're counting everybody who has a Prime membership. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're using Prime Video a lot.
They just have access to Prime Video.
As they mentioned, they want to push that number involving Lord of the Rings because probably the only time a lot of these people have used Prime Video was to watch Rings of Power. And then they probably didn't touch it again.
Or
football, as you mentioned.
Thursday Night Football.
The Thursday Night Football push was big for them, I imagine. Probably drove a lot of access for people who already had Prime and wanted to check it out on their existing service. So, and again, yes, Netflix has plateaued, and that's going to affect these numbers going forward.
Right. And at the beginning of the year, we talked about Netflix losing subscribers. So, yes, it is hitting a plateau of losing more than gaining, but you're talking about a difference of like 50,000 subscribers.
And of course, this also, and with Disney Plus's news this year, with the corporate shakeup and the restructuring happening again under Iger's control, you're probably going to see the Disney Plus numbers as a huge point of interest going into 2023. Whether or not Iger's changes that he plans to make to streaming, what happens on streaming as opposed to what is released to theaters, will affect streaming like audience or not. Whether that number goes up or down will be 100% based on what Iger decides. Whether he wants to throttle more stuff, like control and maybe less stuff happens on the platform, or more stuff, whether he chooses to increase the price, lower the price. A lot of these variables we won't know until Iger makes his plans more clear. So we'll see. Interesting numbers, though, and interesting comparison points to make here. So, yeah, it's a mystery. But streaming, it's here to stay. Like it or hate it.
Yeah, one thing here is that it only says the number of subscribers. It does not mention the actual financial accountings behind each company and how much they're actually technically losing.
Yes, so yeah, we'll see.
Because as much as Amazon wants to go out there and promote, 200 million Prime members, 100 million watching Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, how much of that is actually bringing you any revenue compared to what you did in production?
They spent a lot of money on that.
Oh, yes, they did.
A lot of money on that. So we'll see. Our second story in television is really a movie story, but whatever. It's a slow week. I'll give this to you.
It's going to show on TV.
Yeah, but it's a movie story.
Yes.
Anyways, we're talking about Oscars. It's that time of year. We start seeing some Oscar bait movies coming out very soon.
Yep.
If they're not already out. So, yeah. Well, we got good news for the people who are excited to watch the Oscar ceremony early next year. Finally, all 23 categories will be aired during the Oscars 2023 telecast. Bill Kramer, CEO of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, announced the news, quote, "I can confirm that all categories will be included in the live telecast." This, of course, comes after 8 different Oscar categories: original score, makeup, hairstyling, documentary short, film editing, production design, animated short, live action short, and sound were all cut from the main telecast last year at the 2022 ceremony, leading to, of course, much outrage across the film industry and the Media Boat podcast.
Yes.
Since his appointment in June, Kramer has said he's had many conversations about restoring the missing categories. Quote, "We are thrilled to be in a position to execute that." Jimmy Kimmel, as we mentioned on the show before, will return for the 3rd time to host the Oscars, and the 95th Academy Awards will take place on March 12th, 2023, day after my birthday. Live from the Dolby Theater at Ovation Hollywood.
Yes, Jim Kramer.
Not Jim Kramer. That would be weird.
Yes, Bill Kramer also came out and said that this 95th Academy Awards will start to set the precedent for the buildup of the 100th Academy Awards in 5 years. Cool. So he wants things to be worked on now over the next 4 ceremonies.
Right.
Leading up to the 100th Academy Awards.
All right. Well, could be exciting. I hope they do some cool things with the format. Hope they play around with it because the Oscars are always better when there's a hook. to them when there's something interesting happening.
So, do you get Billy Crystal? Just pencil him in for the 100.
Absolutely not. No, have you seen that man in 2022? I mean, you could have seen him on Broadway with Mr. Saturday Night.
John Party?
No, not that.
No,
Mr. Saturday Night.
Not that, Mr.
Anyways, I think I made the opposite joke when we talked about John Party.
Yes.
Anyways, Billy Crystal?
Yes. And I brought it back.
You brought it back.
This is why you listen to all episodes.
Yes.
For those circular.
You're going to miss so many references if you don't listen to every single hour-plus podcast every week. What are you doing?
Yes, it's only a week. We record this in a day. You have a whole week to listen to it. I feel like it's all in your playground now.
Yeah, balls in your court. I don't know.
Yes, balls in your yard.
Anyways, let's move on. Talk about some thoughts. We both watched a show. You watched the more relevant thing. So and I saw clips of this. Not clips of it. It was, let's put it this way. This was on a television that was in front of me. However, I was also playing the board game Pretty Pretty Princess with my niece when this was happening. So I wasn't watching it 100%.
Okay.
But it did happen in front of me. It was on in the background. And so I saw parts of it. And I got the gist of what was happening.
Yes.
Tell me about Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special on Disney+.
This is an interstitial. It's another one of those Marvel special presentations, much like they did with Werewolf by Night, where it's a special presentation.
Yes.
It's its own self-contained story, apart from everything else, and may or may not actually have ramifications in the future.
Probably not.
For Guardians of the Galaxy, probably so.
Oh.
Because Guardians of the Galaxy Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is coming out next year. So they used this special to help set up kind of what happened between Endgame and what's going to happen in Volume 3. Like where they are, what is the team of Guardians, the new ship, kind of like giving you an established baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to go into Volume 3 being like, wait, this is completely different from what I saw in Volume 2, and I completely missed Endgame for some reason. And like, if
the imagined person who only watches the Guardians movies and skipped the Avengers movies,
right?
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, like if you didn't like realize that Gamora is no longer with the team, they go in and explain like why that is.
Yeah, didn't end great for her.
No. So it's a holiday special.
Yeah.
It's named a Christmas special based off of the Star Wars Christmas special.
It even begins kind of in a kitschy animated way to make you think of that special.
Yes. But it's not animated, and it's live action. Yeah. And the premise is that Drax and Mantis want to surprise Peter Quill for Christmas by getting him his number one hero, Mr. Kevin Bacon.
And of course, because this is a Disney thing, they do get Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
He's in this thing.
So is Kira Sedgwick by phone.
Yeah, but of course. You can't not.
Yes.
It's what you think. It's what you expect.
It's goofy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny in points. But yeah, it tries to do like the holiday spirit and magic. But at the same time, it kind of more skews towards just like, and hijinks ensues more so than it does like about the spirit of Christmas. It does throw up several little backstory plot points between Yondu and Peter Quill. That's like, that's why that happens, or that's why that happens, and it kind of gives more meaning into kind of like the one-off stuff that they have, which I think is nice. It's always good when you can throw an extra backstory like that. Makes things that you may have intended but didn't get across quite on purpose, like the first time, more impactful when you see it later.
Sure, yeah.
But overall, it's a fun Christmas special. I prefer Werewolf by Night. I think I would be watching that one more so on an annual basis.
Sure.
Than this on a Christmas basis every year.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
Actually, a fun time. It's surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be.
I mean, it's what you would hope something Guardians of the Galaxy branded is. It's like fun. You can just stick around with these characters who you really like. That's the whole hook of the Guardians, right? Is that there's characters that are all fun in their own unique ways, and it's fun watching them interact with each other. Is the reason why everybody liked the video game. Is because like just on a base level, it's fun to watch these characters do their thing and do their quips. specifically Drax and Mantis here, who didn't get a whole lot of screen time in Volume 2, so it's nice to see them kind of
Not
do
just
their
in Volume
thing
2,
here.
but in
Endgame too.
Infinity War.
Infinity War,
Endgame.
sorry. Yes, not Endgame. You're right.
Yes.
Good point. I had the hardest time remembering who was affected by that and
Yes.
who wasn't, because I'm not like that invested. So it's like I have to even be reminded, oh wait, they were snapped, but they weren't.
Yes.
Who? Yeah, it's hard to remember. But
Yeah.
anyway.
But anyways, one thing it does really well is actually explore Mantis's powers.
Yeah.
And just gives it more like broad reaching, like, oh, like that's actually what she does, not just like an empath or like telepath or something like that.
More clearly what her powers are.
Yeah, I think that was really good because like even going into Infinity War, I was still like, you do something, sure.
I mean, Christy didn't even remember that Mantis existed when
Yes.
we were start seeing stuff. She was like, "Wait a minute, is she from 2? Have I seen 2?" And I was like, "No, you haven't seen 2." It's like I thought I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a convoluted big universe. It's hard to keep track of that stuff, but it is fun when they do stuff like this that is its own story. But yes, you're right, does have potential effects on the larger story going forward, but it can be enjoyed by itself as well.
Yeah.
And if you like Kevin Bacon, there's a lot of Kevin Bacon.
There's a lot of Kevin Bacon in this. There's also a lot of like played straight for laughs kind of bits.
It's what you want.
Yeah.
It's what you want. Well, I'm glad that's fun. It was a fun little thing. I watched something that's also a fun little thing. I don't have it on here because I forgot about it, but it might be on my top 5.
What did you watch?
So every year I am convinced to watch exactly quantity 1 anime.
Yes.
I'm not a big anime person, as I've talked about on this podcast before.
Yes, but last year you watched Evangelion.
Yeah, I know. And then the year before that, I watched Revolutionary Girl Utena and talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this one's a new anime. This is something that is this calendar year, 2022.
Okay.
I watched something called Bocchi the Rock. It is, and the premise is, and follow me here. The premise is it's basically a musician girl who is a solo guitarist, kind of self-taught, and is very, very socially anxious. So she's somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of friends. She has a YouTube page where she plays a lot of guitar. She's very good. She's very adept. But her friends are basically internet friends, people who comment on her videos. In real life, she's very shy, doesn't have a lot of friends in high school. But she has this dream in her head that she wants to ultimately join a band and be a super successful musician. The problem is, in order to do that, she has to interact with people. And that is a big brick wall in front of her. And so the series explores, hey, what if she did join a band and has these other girls that actually approach her and say, like, hey, we need a guitarist. So the show takes this pretty basic premise and does some really interesting things with it. So you get to see her internal monologue with herself going through her own anxiety in really creative ways. You know how one of the things I love about Tuca and Birdie is that they're willing to play around with animation styles. They really go into the imagination of the characters and have fun with that both stylistically and like thematically. This show does that same bit where like when the main character, who's nicknamed Bocchi, which I believe is Japanese for like lonely or loner, her bandmates nickname her this in the first episode. But yeah, you get to see her like inner struggle in like metaphor, like animated in front of you. One of the funniest moments is she imagines herself as a Godzilla style kaiju. Like that's how she feels about like interacting with other people. She feels like this thing that's unloved, this giant monster. Not too dissimilar to that Taylor Swift lyric from Antihero, actually, now that I think about it. And there's other ones where it's like she has like these like freak out moments where she realizes she has to do something, interact with other people, like, oh, I have to work. And then you get to see this like claymation version of her like being like assaulted by things. And like, I don't even want to spoil all of those moments, but there's some really creative things happening in animation style. There's all sorts of different animation. At one point, one of the freakouts she has, it goes into like this weird pixelated 3D image kind of thing for a little bit. And then it's all this dialogue about like, well, I have to do this. Like, but at the same time as being super imaginative and creative, it's also very accurate to how it feels to have social anxiety. I don't know if you know this about me, but this is something that I've personally struggled with. like less so now, but more so in college and in high school. I had a very hard time kind of like there's just certain blocks that I have, which is like, oh, I have to go and interact with people to do this. I'll pass. Like even going to the grocery store sometimes, it's like I don't want to have to deal with people. Can I put this off a little bit? It's very realistically depicted here. Like there's moments where the one I actually mentioned to Christy when I was selling her on the show. I don't think she's sold. Is she has to go to this club to practice with her band, but she gets there before her friends get there, and the door is closed, and she's like, "Wait, should I go in there? What if there's somebody like at the manager or something? Like I don't know. Like should I even go in there? Who am I going to talk to? Is it going to be awkward? I'll wait 5 more minutes, and then I'll wait 10 more minutes. I'll wait 15 more minutes." And so she's just pacing around in a circle in front of the door before her bandmates finally show up and like, "You can go in," and she's like, "Sorry." It's just so cute and so accurate to how it feels to be anxious and to like not necessarily want to, inconvenience anybody and constantly be doing that dance in your head about like, should I do this? I know it's probably very hard for you to do this. You are the opposite of this in every way, but trust me, it's very accurate to how that feels. And then on the flip side of this, it's also a very interesting kind of study about what it is to be in a band and what the steps you have to take to be in a band in Japan. Like it goes into the actual economy of, okay, you need this many tickets for the venue to like pay you out. And it goes into like actually like, oh yeah, and this is how this works. Like also you have to have a side job and you can work at the club. Like the music scene in Japan seems slightly different than it is here in the US. And the show actually does a pretty decent job of giving you an idea of how it works and how these bands do make their money and what it is like to, and kind of have and it does have a conversation during one of the episodes with somebody who used to be in bands and talk about like what it is after that. And like, it's a fascinating show. It's wrapping up very soon. I believe tomorrow is episode 9. Crunchyroll is doing a stream, like a what's the term when they do it at the same time for Japan and for here?
Simultaneous release.
Yeah, simultaneous stream thing. So I've watched this more or less in real time now. So I caught up on all of the 8 released episodes last week, and then the 9th episode comes out tomorrow. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how they wrap it up. And because these are fascinating characters. They're all fun in their own way, and it's exploring some actually really interesting themes. Oh yeah, and also the music's actually really good. Turns out it's like totally in my wheelhouse. So yeah, I love this thing, and it's been a lot of fun. I like how you're just bringing up random anime gifs now. It's like not even related to the thing we're talking about.
Is this not related to it?
No, not at all.
No? Okay.
You've gotten past.
I went to here.
I know some of them are, and some of these are not. But yeah, it's just such a creative show. It is doing things like some of my favorite animated shows in the last 5 years have been shows that are willing to try things that are out of the norm of their presentation. And this does that in anime. And I think that more shows should do this and explore animation as a genre, as a format, and have fun with that and make that relate directly with the themes of the show that you're talking about. And I think this does that just as successful as something like Tuca and Birdie does. And yeah, it's been a blast, and I'm very excited to wrap it up tomorrow.
Starting into that, Lucasfilm did announce that they were going to continue doing the anime stuff.
Yes, that's exciting.
So I mean,
you've really enjoyed that stuff. So
this is part of like the expansion of that.
Yeah, honestly, yes.
There's a show that friend of the show, Lily, has been wanting me to watch. Family Assassination Family.
Spy Family.
Yes,
that's also on the Crunchyroll. I think that would probably be up your alley.
Yes, she keeps telling me I should watch that.
There you go.
I think I should watch it.
Hey, anime. We don't talk about a whole lot here on the podcast, but this is the thing that convinced me to get a Crunchyroll account. So maybe I'll keep it.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. If there's anything else that is like this, I'm excited to explore it. And so yeah, I'm not against anime. It's just that your usual shonen stuff, like your Dragon Balls and your My Hero Academia, just don't do anything for me. But stuff like this, more character centered, more like with music as like a hook, and like I don't know, exploring different like mental health things. Like that stuff gets me, and I think this is why it works. This show, Bochi the Rock, works for me.
Well, that's why Food Wars got me, because it's about food cooking.
Yeah, that's
And it
interesting.
gets out of like the typical like combat meme struggle. It's just like
Yes.
let's make cooking, but
Yeah.
like intensified.
Not every anime is about a fighting tournament.
Yes.
It may seem like it, but if you dig under the surface, you'll find ones that aren't. And I think that once I realized that, I think I was like, oh yeah, I could get into some of this.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's all I watched this week. Everything else is kind of on pause for the holidays. So new shows will be returning in the new year.
Yep. Like I said last week, several shows are having their fall wrap ups
Yes.
and Christmas beginning. I'm not going to put it down in thoughts, but we did watch the tree lighting ceremony. Congratulations. The tree is now lit.
Congratulations, tree.
Congratulations, tree. Rockefeller tree, you are now lit and the holiday season can begin.
Lit AF.
Yep. So one thing that's on my list is the Holly Dolly Christmas
right,
Mountain.
yes. We'll probably
special.
watch that as well. We'll
And
probably check that out.
We'll probably have that next week.
Yes. Yeah, because I think Christy and I determined like it's still feels a little too early for Christmas specials. Maybe next week.
Yes.
We'll like keep moving that like down like a little later.
Mhm.
Anyway, so that's it for television thoughts. Let's move into cancellations and renewals.
What am I no longer watching?
Well, Hulu is bringing back Tell Me Lies for a second season.
True.
So more lies.
Or false.
Yeah, more lies are coming. PBS will be bringing back Miss Scarlet and the Duke for a fourth season that I believe is in their Masterpiece, whatever. They don't call it Masterpiece Theater anymore. It's like Masterpiece. I think that's it. Paramount Plus is bringing back Tulsa King for a second season. Netflix has canceled The Midnight Club after one season. Apple TV is bringing back Surface for a second season. Those are your cancellations, renewals. One quick death, sad one for the music community. Christine McVie, one of the members of Fleetwood Mac, has died, unfortunately, at the age of 79. Of course, is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the members of Fleetwood Mac. Songwriter, some of her penned Fleetwood classics include Don't Stop and Everywhere. She also had a little bit of a solo career, also songwriting for other artists. Definitely one of the reasons why Fleetwood Mac was as popular as they are. One of there's a lot of stories about that band, and like Christine was like seen as like this rock that kind of held them together, or like this glue. And when things were fraught, like of course there's the legend of the recording of Rumors and how different lovers spats and divorce was happening at the time of that recording, and a lot of drug use, and how everything was chaos, and yet it created this classic album. Well, Christine during all that was seen as like this binding force, and was kind of like united the separate parts of the band and kept them together to record it. So yeah, definitely a sad one, definitely a loss.
First person from Fleetwood Mac, I think.
I don't know how it breaks down, actually. I don't know if they've lost anybody before Christine. I'm not sure. I know Stevie Nicks is still alive.
Yes.
And I know Lindsey Buckingham is still alive. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm the wrong person to ask.
I'm pretty sure I saw it was the first person from it.
Yeah, you might be right. So yeah. So as I mentioned to Christy once I saw this, all right, Stevie Nicks watch. Somebody watch her at all times. We can't lose Stevie Nicks. Anyways, so let's move on. We have no other deaths, thankfully. So that's it. So we bring that to the last portion of the show here, which is movies. And we always start the movie section with the weekend box office numbers. As movie watching starts to tick down to the new year, at least until Avatar comes out, your number one is still Black Panther Wakanda Forever at $45.6 million this week, bringing that to a domestic total of 367, already one of the most successful movies of the year. So Congratulations to Black Panther. Number two coming in, and unfortunately for Disney, continuing to not make as much money, Strange World, with only a $12 million amount this week. That's at 18.
That's 18 over the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
I blame marketing on this.
Honestly, I do too. I feel like it was nowhere, and it did not apparently convince anyone who wasn't already going to see this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's important to, of course, release family movies as counter programming to these bigger blockbusters, but ultimately, if your family doesn't know what this thing is or about, then it's going to be harder to convince.
Also, Strange World is a bad title.
It's a bad move, honestly. Yeah, everything about this spelled disaster before it even came out. Not
Mhm.
surprising that it's bombing in the way that it is. And yeah, sad to see. And it will not be even close to making any money. So yeah, very sad.
Should have switched this with some of the Pixar ones.
Honestly, yes, Turning Red should have been a theatrical release and put it here. I feel like if that had they replaced and made a theatrical run for Turning Red right now, it probably would have done way, way better.
Yep.
Speaking of things that are in the conversation lately in movie Twitter about things that would have done better with a larger theatrical window, Glass Onion, that is the second in the Knives Out films from Rian Johnson. We will be talking about it. We saw it, but not that many other people saw it because in the one weekend of release, it made $9.4 million, 13.2 million total right now. And we'll probably stop there because it is going to get exclusive streaming treatment when it's released on Netflix from here on out.
Yep, it'll be on Netflix for Christmas, which means that it's going to get 3 weeks of just nothing. But hey, at least it now qualifies for the Oscars because it was in theaters.
That's why they did
for
this.
a weekend, for a week run.
Honestly, though, I think all you'll see, just like with Knives Out, is you'll see a screenplay. You'll see screenplay, and that's it. I don't think it'll show up, even though Janelle Monáe, does do a tour. We'll talk about it, but yeah, I think she's the reason to see this thing beyond just it being a good movie.
Yes, that Janelle Monáe.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a moment. But before that, rounding out your top 5 here, number 4, Devotion with $5.9 million, adding to a $9 million total, and rounding out to 5 and number 5, The Menu with a $5.4 million this week, 18 total domestic. In case you're wondering, your 2 big releases this past week, your Oscar bait films, or at least one of them is Oscar bait.
Your Spielberg.
The Fabelmans, a measly $2.2 million. I guess nobody knows that this thing is out. Again, a failure of marketing.
Yep.
And Bones and All, he ate the bones, $2.2 million.
Who has Horror in Christmas?
Yeah.
Expect to see Violent Night on this list next week.
Violent Night next week. Yeah, weird time for movies.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, there is a conversation right now about like, is this really when we should start talking about theatrical releases again and making that the norm? Because like the divide between streaming and theatrical now seems really weird and blurry. Mm-hmm. And I think that 2023 will be this rethink of how the studios do it going forward. We'll see. Speaking of how the studios do it, what they like to do is give you teasers about new movies.
What about what's upcoming releases?
Oh, sorry. I forgot about upcoming releases because I didn't realize there were any this week.
Yes.
But there are, believe it or not. This coming week is, of course, Avatar.
Nope.
We talked about those last week.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did. Because I remember I asked you, wait, that's the Brendan Fraser one. And you said yes.
Yeah, but that's coming out.
Sorry,
a wider release this week.
Wider release this week. The Whale with Brendan Fraser and Empire of Light.
Yes, you're a week ahead.
But then it's Avatar and everything else, and that's pretty much it for the year.
Yep.
So look forward to that, I guess.
All right.
Anyways, with that being said, now let's talk about trailers. Some big trailers for the upcoming year of releases were released this week. First up, let's just go in order here. First up, the Super Mario Brothers movie got a second proper trailer here.
Yep. More of a story trailer this time.
Yeah, did a better job of basically discussing what the stakes are and what setup is for the story.
Yep. More Chris Pratt in this. More Charlie Day in this.
Yes, we got to see Luigi. We got to see Anya Taylor-Joy's Peach.
Yes.
We got to see Donkey Kong.
Yes.
Seth Rogen's Donkey Kong.
We got to see, not here.
Not here. Can't wait. Yeah. I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about this movie.
It looks really good, though.
You're into it? Okay.
Visually, it looks good. When we saw this before the trailer of Black Panther, we both kind of got excited watching it. It was like, yeah, this looks pretty good on a big screen.
Yeah. What I will say about it is it does seem, it kind of feels like they're going for the thing that everybody wanted Wreck-It Ralph to be that Wreck-It Ralph wasn't, which is a video game movie. It seems like it's checking all the Mario boxes that you want. Mm-hmm. And I think that fans are going to appreciate that because I think there's a lot of going to be Easter eggs that are actually for them. Yes. There's a lot of very game-specific things that are discussed in there, like the idea of having a galaxy of different Mario places to go to, like Super Mario Galaxy, talking about power-ups like the fireballs and like donut platforms
The
that
Tanuki
fall, and
suit.
so the Tanuki suit. Very specific game references that you'd only know if you played the games. But again, Mario is one of the most popular games in the world, so these are not as niche as maybe some people want to give it credit for. So that's where I'm a little iffy about. Story-wise, it seems interesting that they're synthesizing a lot of different Mario stories. It seems like they're picking and choosing from the games and from even other media properties. It seems like there's going to be a element of the Super Mario Brothers movie that exists here, including them being actual plumbers and maybe being actually from Brooklyn, which is weird because
New Donk City.
very much in the video game version of that, I
Yes.
guess. Yeah, and hints that there is like hints even at the like some marketing taglines being from the television shows of the past, and I'm like just like wow, they're basically raking in every Mario thing that has ever existed and somehow distributing it into this film. It might be a little too much, and that's kind of where I'm like, I'm gonna wait until the movie is out to make any call here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
don't have to wait that long.
No, April for
Yes.
this. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Other trailers. We have a name now for the 5th Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and we have a trailer. I did not watch this. What did you think?
Harrison Ford is an old man.
Oh, well, we knew that.
Well, we knew that in Crystal Skull. But Harrison Ford is an old man.
He's an old
I think this was also part of the teaser trailer that they showed at D23, exclusively for those who were able to attend. But they just called it Indiana Jones 5 there.
Yeah.
Now the official name, Dial of Destiny. And it's weird because he is a lot older, yet it's still set in like Nazi era, 50s.
Yeah, what?
40s, late 40s.
That doesn't make sense.
Interesting to see where they go here, but this is supposed to be the end of Indiana Jones, so maybe he does die and it accepts his destiny, or he picks up the phone because Destiny called.
Yeah, how do you feel about that name?
Dial of Destiny?
Yeah, I feel there's something weird about it.
Well, it's supposed to reference sundial.
Yeah, but like dial, the idea of a dial as being a thing of destiny does not strike me as important or interesting in any way.
Well, he's literally answering the call of destiny.
Yes.
Call to action.
I don't love it.
Answer the call to action. This is a literal call to action.
Yeah, too literal. I don't love it.
Yes.
But whatever. We'll see. I hope it's good. I hope Harrison.
Do you?
I hope it's good because honestly, I do. I do hope it's good.
Do you?
It'd be nice to have another Indiana Jones movie that doesn't suck, that doesn't immediately get written off the books as being
doesn't
bad.
have Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, I mean, like that would be nice. Those first 3 movies are, well, less so the second, but they're pretty good. And so I would love to have another good one in the canon. But you're right, Harrison Ford, he's extremely old. And yeah, I wonder what it means story-wise, like how that affects the story here. It'd be really interesting to see what they do. We'll see.
Yeah, it belongs in a museum.
It sure does. Let's move on to the next one. Transformers, the franchise, is back with Rise of the Beasts. Now, my understanding is this is how they kind of shift towards the Beast Wars Transformers.
Yes, because now the Transformers are animals.
Yes.
As in the Beast Wars Transformers.
Right. Yeah, I was never a Transformers kid, nor was I a Beast Wars kid, even though that was more in the era that I grew up in. And I could have been a Beast Wars kid, but I wasn't. Do you have any affection for the Beast Wars?
I have a really weird story with specifically the Beast Wars.
All right.
Because I watched the TV show on Fox.
I knew that it was happening.
Yes, I watched it. So I played the video games for it.
Okay.
Or at least I tried. Because it was one of my first interactions with the joysticks, dual joysticks.
Yes.
And I couldn't use the arrows because the arrows were for the different transformations of them.
Oh, so you couldn't move around with them.
So I couldn't move around using the arrows. I had to use the joystick and look around with it. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is weird. I've never done this. Let me use the arrows. But anytime I press the arrows, it'd be to transform. I was like, I can't move. Help. Of course, now I use joysticks for everything.
Sure, but at the time, it was novel.
Yes, at the time, I had no idea. Like, I knew I could use it to move, but I never wanted to use it to move.
Yeah.
I always wanted to use the arrows because, like, this makes sense. Arrow goes this way. Arrow goes this way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But yeah, but as for this trailer,
It's another Transformers movie?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this just another
It
Transformers?
just looks like the Transformers movie, especially since they're still like car-based Transformers.
Now, do you think that the love people had for Bumblebee maybe actually affects the reception to this, or do you think this is back to basics, back to the Michael Bay formers?
Not really, because there's still Transformers like out in the world and they are aware of them. As for the Michael Bay ones, it was like more of like a growing process of it.
Right.
Even though Bumblebee kind of like says, "Oh no, they've always existed." People just kind of forgot about them
Okay.
for some reason.
Okay, interesting.
But it's another Transformers movie. I'm not sure like if we need another one, but IP and money says they do.
Yeah, as always.
Yep.
Next trailer, and this is dovetails well with something you watched earlier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, so like I said last week, the Christmas special technically came out last Friday.
Right.
And then for some reason, on Thursday, all of these trailers dropped.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the World Cup or what, or because of like upcoming bowl games.
Maybe, yeah.
But like all these trailers literally dropped on the same day within like hours of each other. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is now out. We get a little bit more seeing into what that is about, coming in May, I believe. Yeah, because Ant-Man in February and then Guardians in May, with the Marvels in the summer.
Yeah.
Those are the next upcoming Marvel releases. It looks fun. It's definitely going to be the last one. Jay's going to said so as much. Drax wears shirts now because Dave Bautista doesn't want to work out and like keep that physique body. He has said so much in interviews that it takes a lot of energy to keep that kind of body. And as he gets older, they're just gonna like put shirts on him and be like, "Yeah, you're just gonna wear shirts now and clothing." And they're like, we don't need to. It's a generic thing of like, yeah, we don't need like you to always be topless now. Yes, I know you can say shirtless, but
it's funnier when you say
topless.
You're
yes,
right. You're right. So yeah, I mean, it's more Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep,
nothing wrong with that.
Nope, it will be James Gunn's kind of farewell.
Yeah, I guess
to the Marvel universe.
Now that he's a DC man,
as he goes to
the DC man,
he becomes the DC man.
Yeah, so
this is his like farewell to Marvel. Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to kill off your characters.
You really think that's how this is going to end? Yeah.
Fire me?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he should. If that's what he should do, just wipe it out. Just wipe out. Yeah. Make Disney figure it out.
You have plans to play them? Yeah, you have
Too
plans?
bad.
No. If you're going to bring them back, you got to multiverse them. No, these guys are dead.
Yeah, balls in your court, Feige. All right.
Let's see how you play with zero Guardians.
But then, last but not least, let's talk about Cocaine Bear.
Yes, you know about Cocaine Bear?
I know about Cocaine Bear. I knew they were going to make a movie about Cocaine Bear.
Yes, Cocaine Bear.
But let's talk about Cocaine Bear.
Yes, Cocaine Bear's out.
So there's a trailer for Cocaine Bear. You're pulling up some...
There's some stills about it.
Stills of Cocaine Bear.
Yes.
And yeah, Bear goes on a coked out killing spree.
Bear on cocaine.
Bear. So what do you think about the trailer? Are you going to see Cocaine Bear?
Oh, it's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. I know it's supposed to be like all serious and stuff, but no. Elizabeth Banks' new film, A Cocaine Bear.
Bear.
It's hilarious. I just kept laughing through it.
It's just fun to say.
It is. I know it's supposed to be like a serious thing, but it's funny. I had a fun, hilarious time watching it, even though it's kind of supposed to be serious. Like,
again, you said it 3 times, but yes.
Like, I don't know, it's the name like Cocaine Bear. How do you like not have so much fun of it? But yeah.
They could have called it anything else.
They could have called it Plane.
But they just... Oh my God, can we talk about Plane?
Oh yeah, I'm going to have Plane this list.
So, real quick. We will, yes, we will get to Glass Onion later, but one of the trailers that was before our showing of Glass Onion was for a movie called Plane, and the reveal of that name was one of the most funny, was the funniest thing that's happened in a trailer in a theater in a long time to me. So it's this long run up to this movie that seems very serious about a plane that crashes.
It's Jared Gerard Butler
Yeah, and
is a
there's
pilot.
yeah, and there's like somebody who was on like
And he has to take a con
yeah,
from
a murderer.
murderer from
Yeah,
one location to another on his plane.
on this plane, but the plane crashes on an island, I guess.
Yes.
And then you have a lost like scenario where there's this, like the different people from the plane, are having like dealings with each other. But then it kind of goes into like a Rambo style direction where it's like there's like insurrection happening on the island, and then there's lots of guns, and of course some murderers. It's really good with guns.
It's like the government can't get involved in the island that you crash landed on because political reasons.
And so at some point I was like, is this a Far Cry movie? This feels like a Far Cry movie. And like, so the vibe is like very specific. And you think like, what would you name this movie? Like you name this movie, I don't know, like Island Terror or something like that. Something evocative of what's happening, or like the murderer or something like that. I don't know. But you know what this movie is fucking called? It's like called Plane.
You call it Contact.
Why is this movie called Plane?
It's Plane.
The plane is only part of the plot. Like, the plane goes in so many other directions.
The plane literally doesn't exist in the movie past the first act.
Why is it called Plane? Plane. I can't believe that movie is called Plane.
Plane. It's like working title, like Plane.
Working title, yeah. Where like a first draft of the script is just called Plane.
And then they never got around to fixing it.
Placeholder, right? It's like when you're first coming up with a thing, I was like, well, I need a title to put in this. So I'll just call it Plane for now because I'm working in the scenes that have a plane.
Yes.
And then you never change it. Why is this movie called Plane? Maybe there's something we don't know, right? Maybe they're saved by a plane at the end. Maybe a plane factors into the plot later. Who knows? Otherwise, it's a really dumb name. So yeah, Plane. Watch the trailer for Plane. You'll at least get a kick out of the reveal of the title.
The reveal, yes.
Anyways, that's it for trailers. We'll have more to say about those movies when they come out. But in the meantime, some movies coming from Legendary Entertainment will now have a different home. They made news this week by announcing they, of course, the production company behind Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong, etc., has cut ties with their business partner Warner Brothers and entered a multi-year worldwide film distribution partnership with Sony Pictures. Under the new agreement, Sony will market and distribute Legendary's upcoming theatrical motion picture titles. However, select existing projects at Legendary are exempt from the pact, meaning Warner Brothers Pictures is still backing Dune Part 2, of course, because this is equal to Dune, and is currently in production for a November 3rd, 2023 release date for that film. In a press release, Sony Pictures and Legendary emphasized that the companies are aligned in their ongoing commitment, quote, to theatrical distribution as a driver for other downstream windows and the theatrical window's long-term value for films. That's really business speak saying, hey, we're going to put out their movies.
Yes.
This being an obvious jab at Warner Brothers putting their films on HBO Max in 2021 on the same day as their theatrical debuts.
Apparently, yes, remember the same day and dates?
Yes, Legendary had a huge problem with this. Ask Christopher Nolan. Godzilla vs. Kong grossed $470 million globally, and Dune generated $401 million worldwide, making each of them pandemic-era box office hits, despite that HBO Max deal, which almost goes against this weird bone to pick that they have about this. So yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the big bones that we talked about last year.
We did.
I think it kind of was our year's list?
Yes, I believe that the concept of the line between streaming and film releases and how that affect the movie industry
was our story of the year.
I think for 2 years in a row, actually.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely interesting to see what Legendary does going forward with Sony and how Sony is very adamant about.
Well, here's a good thing. Sony only has Crackle as a streaming service.
Right, yeah. Sony also here is an interesting company because they're the one of the few studios that doesn't have a streaming pipeline to go straight to.
We're not counting Crackle?
We're not counting Crackle.
Okay.
Sorry, Crackle.
All right.
Anyway, that's it for movie news. So we can now talk about the thing we've been wanting to talk about for a little bit.
Wait, do we want to talk about this first?
Do you want to do the fan question first? We do have a fan question this week.
We do have a fan question, and we really want to talk about Glass Onion. I feel like we're talking a lot more about Glass Onion than we will about the fan question.
Okay, let's do the fan question real quick. So our fan question comes in from our favorite fan. And they ask, hey, y'all, April Fools is a breeding ground for rumors, especially back before the internet could confirm or deny certain conspiracies. Have you ever given clout to stories that you heard in a magazine or hearsay. I got to admit, I was one to think that you can unlock Sonic in Super Smash Bros. Melee if I defeated enough Polygon men. Or the time that I thought I can unlock Mew by checking under that parked truck. Tell me your favorite rumors that you fell for. Well, just so happens that you burned the two that I have, because I was also someone at the right perfect age for both of these rumors to hit. I did look at that truck. I did try to find Mew back there. There's no Mew there. I also fell for the missing no thing. I ruined my red save because I did the missing no thing, except I screwed it up. So if anybody knows the missing no trick in red and blue, is that you have to have the item that you want to duplicate. It's about duplicating items.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have, so Master Ball, for example. If you want Master Ball to work, it has to be in a specific number on your item list in your inventory, right? Well, I missed that number by 1. So you know what I ended up having infinite amount of? Not Master Balls, Paralyzed Heals. So I had infinite Paralyzed Heals, but eventually it got so bad I couldn't do anything in that game because of how glitched it was. Don't do the missing no trick, people. If you take anything away from this, don't do it. I mean, thankfully for me, I guess, in a way, the save battery on my red cartridge ended up breaking. And so now I can't even save. I just would have to start from the top every single time I play it. So yeah, yes, let this be a PSA for all you who still have original Game Boy cartridges out there. Check your save batteries. You probably lost a save.
I did the exact same thing, but on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And that was a lot easier to do of just duplicating either Pokemon or items.
Yeah, my Ruby also, I think the save still exists, but the time of day thing broke, because I guess that's also on like a separate battery in the cartridge. And so it doesn't know what time it is. So when you start up the game, it'll say any time-related things will not work. They built in a thing for that to happen, and it'll tell you when you power up the game. I was like, wow, that's weird. So yeah, check your old Pokemon games. And the second thing here is, yes, I did also fall for the Sonic thing. That was in EGM, and I was an avid reader of EGM at the time. And so little 11-year-old me was absolutely convinced that if I beat the 99-man melee or whatever that thing was called, that I would unlock Sonic and Tails, I think. It was Sonic and Tails, I want to say. And I remember I was talking to one of my friends at the time at church, and I was telling him about it as if it was true. And I regret doing that. The poor kid probably believed me. And I was like, now like looking back, it's like, oh, I was so gullible. I was so
gullible. Back in the day, like, oh God, almost like forever ago, feels like, I got Game Informer.
Yes.
Like magazines.
Game Informer had good ones.
Every April,
yep.
Game Enforcer came out.
Yes, Game Enforcer.
The first time that came out, I didn't realize that it was a Switch. So I thought everything in it was real.
Oh no! It's literally called Game Enforcer.
I didn't get that it was called Game Enforcer at the time.
Wow.
Amazing. So yeah, I fell for a couple of those for like the first 2 years, and then like the third year, it was like, oh, I feel so dumb now.
Yeah, generally speaking, I feel like there was a period of time where I definitely fell for a lot of those video game ones in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right though. There is that fall off, that steep fall off after the internet, because when you're able to fact check things immediately and see if they're real, it kind of the fun goes away from April Fools. So I can't really think of pinpoint any specific,
especially anything newer, because there's like an adage now, like the fastest way to find the correct answer is to provide a wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and honestly, I think as I've gotten older, it's like the idea of April Fools, especially now in the environment we're at, where every day you have to question whether something is actually true or not.
Yes.
It makes the whole April Fools thing seem a lot less fun. Because it's like, oh, wait, the whole day where people are lying to me, like, this sucks. Like, who knows what true is anymore? And so, yeah, it's just the concept is not as fun as it was. But I think you pinpointed the exact moment where it was still fun and where it was still very believable.
Truck. Yes.
Yeah, where people were just figuring out that like perfect middle zone of something just realistic enough where it could have happened, but just silly enough where it's probably wrong.
Yes, except for in one of my cases, this year we actually ended up coming true, and that's the Kingdom Hearts
That's true.
animated cinematic, which yes,
Oh,
it
yeah.
did exist.
Speaking of which, that reminds me of another good one that I fell for, also from EGM, and I think it was maybe the year after this one that you referenced with Melee. They did one that was Mushroom Kingdom Hearts, where it was going to be a Nintendo
Yes.
crossover, and they had convincing screenshots of like Mario in one of the like the Organization 13 hoods and
Mhm.
stuff. Well, this must have been after 2 then, so this was later. This would have been like 2005.
2007,
But yeah,
2006, 2007.
so yeah, it was like still I maybe bought it for a couple seconds, and then I was like, no, Nintendo would never do this. So yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. That was the Melee one specifically is probably the one that I believed the most.
It's the one that everyone
Yeah.
believed the most. Yeah.
I legitimately thought you had to do all that cruel Melee business, and it was just like, this is too hard. No one's gonna be able to do this. Anyways.
Yep.
But now, yes, let's talk about Glass
All right.
Onion.
20 minutes.
No, we're not
Okay.
gonna take that long.
All right. Especially because we're going to talk about on our end of the year lists.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, Glass Onion will be a Netflix streaming film, but for now, for this last weekend, it did have a limited theatrical run. We were lucky enough to grab tickets and see it in a theater.
We were very lucky to grab tickets and see it.
We are. But yeah, this of course follow up to Knives Out, written and directed again by Rian Johnson, and also featuring the same Daniel
Blanc.
Craig, Benoit Blanc, doing his same bit, same character for a different murder mystery. And I mean different murder mystery. This basically takes the concept, the loose concept of Knives Out, and then twists it and turns it in weird ways that you don't anticipate to make it the same feeling that you got watching Knives Out and being like, man, I can't believe that we got here after all of that, in new and exciting ways. And I think, yeah, it's definitely one of the best movies of the year. I think he knocked it out of the park again. Somehow managed to make a movie that feels the same, but works, but all the parts are rearranged to convince you that this is a new original way to tell a murder mystery.
It's completely new cast except for Daniel Craig.
Right.
But same kind of concept of everyone's got a motive for the murder that happens.
Yes.
And it's up to Benoit Blanc to help decipher out through all the clues who is the true murderer.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, that kind of like most mysteries, like murder mysteries, get kind of mixed up, is that they make the detective the focal point. He is not the focal point in either of these movies.
No.
It is the cast of characters that are the and their interactions with each other and their motives as you find through that becomes focal point. Janelle Monáe is fantastic in this.
Oh, absolutely. This is a star turn if I've ever seen one. This is the thing that I think that gets Janelle Monáe more roles in the future. I think this turns Janelle Monáe's career into a different level at this point. I think this is going to convince a lot of people. But yeah, cast-wise, just like Knives Out, this is an ensemble movie in the best possible way. Everybody is all working on all cylinders here, just like in the first one. Everybody in this is performing like nuts and hamming it up and working to the camera and just everything that you want, leaning into the kind of archetypes that they are, but not being 100% a cliche either. They navigate ways to make it convincing that they're scummy ass people, terrible, terrible people.
They're destructors.
But in different ways and in convincing, funny ways. Edward Norton, I mean, you don't cast Edward Norton in your movie unless you want him to be a scumbag. He's a scumbag here, convincing, also timely in a way that I don't necessarily want to spoil because I think you should go in not knowing anything about this film. But yes, a very convincing thing he's doing. Dave Bautista doing a very specific character, but in a way you don't anticipate. Also great. Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson, just shocking in this.
Yes, just wild. Does the character she has to do.
Yes.
We mentioned Janelle Monáe. Catherine Hahn doing an understated kind of thing. She's having a year.
Yes.
With WandaVision and this, and like, yeah, she's having quite a year. like a couple of years, I guess. WandaVision was last year.
WandaVision was last year.
But yeah, Leslie Odom Jr. doing a
Yes, this is the thing Leslie Odom
Interesting
Jr.
take.
was supposed to do to get his name out there.
But yeah, just everybody in this movie. We could just keep going, but everybody in this movie is just doing an amazing job at setting up their characters and making them. You really believe that any of these idiots could have absolutely killed someone. It's extremely convincing. But again, the way that Rian Johnson's script keeps pulling the rug out from under you in creative ways that you do not anticipate is even more impressive here than I think that it was in Knives Out. The way that like you think it's going to end and then it doesn't, and then you think it's going to end again and then it doesn't, and you think like, oh wait, no, I know this character's motivation now, and it turns out you don't. It turns out every step of the way he saw what you were thinking and tried to defeat that and tried to be like, no, you thought that it was this way, but no, it's actually this. Even up to the very end of this film, you're constantly guessing yourself, second guessing.
Like I thought it was going to end a certain way, a very Zootopia way. Ended up, nope. That's we're just going to like make this our own ending.
Especially if
very
refreshing.
Yeah.
Especially if you compare this not only to Knives Out, but also to a contemporary murder mystery story that we liked this year, The After Party on Apple Plus. That, of course, different kind of animal because you had several episodes kind of stretch your murder mystery over. But they're similar in the way that it does try to defy those expectations and make you second guess the more information you learn about each of these characters as the movie goes on.
Right, but the difference is that in After Party, they were told in very unique stylings from a certain character's point of view. This one isn't. It's just it happens in front of you. There's no like retelling. Well, at least there's a little bit retelling.
There are moments of that.
There are
moments of that actually here.
Yeah, because there's some flashbacks.
And the one thing that I will say, I think there was a danger here that Rian Johnson could have hewed a little too close to the Knives Out structure, especially with Janelle Monáe's character. You could have seen there was a moment there, especially for the first like 30 minutes, where I was like, are they just doing that character again? But the thing that they do here is so out of anything I could have predicted that he makes it work.
Yeah.
He absolutely makes it work where at no point after you get past that point, you're thinking, oh, this is derivative. No, he manages even the thing that you think is the character that you think is going to be, oh, this is the protagonist. Even that is flipped on its head a couple of times before the end of the movie. And it just, every step of the way it works.
Bunch of shitheads.
They really, really, really are. I mean, yeah, so I think ultimately if you enjoyed Knives Out and you want to see something like that, Glass Onion is a no-brainer. Like, this will be immediately something everybody loves on Netflix. And it's, like I said, extremely timely and relevant. It's a story unlike...
It's weird that this is specifically shot for 2020.
Yes.
Yet here we are 2 years later and more relevant than ever.
More relevant. The one thing, one of the neat things I thought of, again, not going into a lot of plot details, but kind of giving you a light overview. Somebody pointed out the internet, the difference between the two films is Knives Out is about millionaire assholes. Glass Onion is about billionaire assholes. And you don't think that there's a difference between those people, but there absolutely is. And this movie does a really, really good job of pinpointing why this kind of shitheadery, assholery, is a different animal than this and actually is way more dangerous and will affect a lot more people's lives depending on the idiot decisions that they make. And it does a really good job of kind of unpeeling the layers of that.
The layers of the onion, because at the end of the day, it's still an onion.
Yes. But again, even saying more about this theme and the relevance of the title, I think, is giving away too much.
Yes.
So, yeah, just see this on Netflix when it's out on the 23rd. You'll love it. I promise. If you liked Knives Out, you will absolutely adore this thing.
I don't think it's no longer in theaters.
No, I don't believe so. I believe Sunday was it.
Yeah, all times.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, the 11th.
It's done. So
there's one more showing.
One more show,
11th.
I guess. But yeah, other than that, like, you missed the theatrical. And honestly, even having the theatrical experience, I feel like it wasn't the theatrical experience I wanted. Like, I feel like if we had gone Friday night, it would have been like a bigger like the reactions would have been better.
Not Sunday afternoon.
We went to a matinee show, which maybe tempered the volume.
I don't know.
of
I
the
still had a
crowd.
fun time.
It was still a
watching
fun. I'm absolutely glad that I did see it in a theater.
Yes.
Yeah, it is something that benefits from the big screen.
Mhm.
And honestly, we haven't talked about it here, but yes, but Daniel Craig. This is a character he was built to play. Like James Bond, who cares? This is his character. This is his legacy.
I put that on Ryan Johnson, able to pull that out of him.
Absolutely. This is definitely his character. When I'm thinking about Daniel Craig, this is going to be what I think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stellar movie. I don't know. Do you have anything more you want to talk about it with it?
Not going into spoilers.
Right. Yeah. It's very hard to talk about. We will talk more about it spoiler wise in our wrap up.
Because pretty sure it will live on both our lists at somewhere.
It will. It absolutely is in my top 5. So.
Yep. I mean,
that's
Knives Out was
our movie
2019
in 2019.
Well, it was that and Endgame because
right, I forgot that we did that. But because really, it's Knives Out. It's really Knives Out. Anyway, so yeah, that's all we have to say about that, I guess, right now.
Yep.
In the meantime, that wraps up the movie section here, and that wraps up this episode of the Media Boat Podcast. And now, yes, this is when we should talk about our wrap-up specials before we go here. We are in December, and traditionally what we have done in the past is given you that last week of December, all of our wrap-up shows every day of the week. So we do 5 wrap-up shows, again, as I said last week. We do 1 for each of our categories.
Yep. Music,
video games, movies, etc. Television.
Etc. Yes.
Not necessarily
and the rest.
Order. And the rest, yes.
As well as a 5th bonus one where we wrap up the whole entire year, stuff that we don't normally talk about on this podcast, but did happen in the year 2022.
Yes.
This is where we get to our political stuff, all the stuff that happens outside of the media landscape, anything like scientific breaking as well.
But we decided to try something a little different this year. As I mentioned last week, we're going to take a page from our March Madness playbook.
Yes.
And instead of lumping it all on Christmas week, we're going to spread it across the lovely month of December to give you more every week, a bonus podcast in your ears on our feed. So we will be starting this coming week
on Wednesday
the 7th. We will have our first episode of the top of our top 5 wrap-ups with music. We will follow that up on the 14th, Wednesday the 14th, with our episode all about the year in video games. The 21st, we will have our episode all about television. And wrapping up your final show and your post-Christmas special from us will be on the 28th. And that will be movies. And then
this will give us a chance to watch the Christmas releases, catch up on anything with movie-wise before we get to that.
And on Saturday the 31st, likely we will do our last episode of the season, a regular episode. Then also we will release, that will be the day where we might as well just release our final episode.
We will do that as the first.
Which will be the 5th year-end wrap-up show. So yeah, that's our kind of our schedule. Depending on how recording works, we may need to move those dates around, but for now, that's what we're aiming for. So yeah, look forward to all of those. As we've done in the past, each of those wrap-up specials will be our top 5s of the year, our favorite things of the year, picking one specific thing to be our favorite thing of the year for the podcast. And then the second half of the show is wrapping up the news stories or the first half of the show. Sorry, I got
first half
reviews. Reverse.
First half is the news stories.
News wrap up,
picking up our most
important story of the year in each of those categories. So look forward to all that starting next week.
And with that, we got to go get to list making.
Yes.
So if you like this podcast, we have 359 other episodes you could listen to.
So check all of that out in video form on YouTube. You can go to our channel at youtube.com, search Media Boat Podcast, and you'll find our channel. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications when we go live, typically on Saturday mornings like this lovely one. If you want to listen to us in audio form and get those special bonus wrap-up episodes, you can find us on podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, wherever you listen to it, Spotify. Send us your Wrapped if we're on it. Somewhere out there, I'm surely somebody listens to us on Spotify, right? Maybe.
Unwrap us.
We don't get those numbers. Audio form there. And yes, that's the feed where you will see our wrap-up episodes show up. So look for those this month. You'll also find us on social media platforms. Twitter, we're still there at Media Boatcast. Facebook, search Media Boat Podcast to find our page there. We're on MediaBoatPodcast.com as well. And if you want to send us questions, feedback, your own top fives or favorite things that maybe we missed in the calendar year of 2022, email us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be checking that out, and maybe we'll mention you on the podcast, just like our fan question today. So that'll wrap it up for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back on the 7th with a bonus episode wrap-up. But other than that, we'll be back on the 10th for another episode of the Media Boat Podcast. Thank you for joining us. See you guys next time.
Yep, we'll be back with more news, more thoughts, and more of us.
More of us.
All right, bye.
Bye.
And we're out. Bye. End.
I can't believe we're going to